doing some editing to improve the product itself. Trying to get off a white background. This is the place where it started. Highly reflective jewelry, not very well cleaned, a little bit of a yellow tinge, off-white background because you can never photograph white without blowing it out, thus blowing out the jewelry. So shoot it a bit gray and then you clean it up afterwards. I've applied a layer mask. I'll explain that in the next image I edit. I'm just kind of refining that mask as we go. So first thing I usually do is make sure the background is completely white, and I have a separate layer on the background, which for the purpose of editing I can invert into black and see how much I have to bring back in from my rough mask. I'm going to use a relatively hard edge with a little bit of softness to it. 700 should be fine. And my opacity is at 100 with my brush. If you do not know how to use masks, I'm jumping in really quick. This isn't a tutorial video, this is just me doing what I do thousands of times on thousands of products over the last 20 years. You can pick up on it pretty quick if you want. This isn't about me narrating too much. I might talk just to get used to talking about myself. And edit away. Not sure how the music audio is going to turn out the first time using the service live stream, because at this point, January 2019, Twitch has removed their Spotify playlist, which I heard was a good thing to use, and they haven't replaced it yet. They're acquired by Amazon. Amazon and Spotify are competitive, and I don't think Spotify authorizes public use of their playlists. I'm using something called pretzel.rocks. It's an app for streaming, and audio is projecting on my speakers and playing live through the computer probably as well. You know what? One might think that I'm doing this in an inefficient way. I want to see this edge a little bit. If a little bit of fuzzy goes over the edge at that opacity, it's not gonna show up. And a little bit of a gray halo helps it, off-white halo, helps it not look like it's too cookie cutter. We are nothing more than dust. Search but you stay lost. We are reaching for the stars, but we're making this too hard. And I wonder where you are. Mysterious, that's the part you always show, 'cause you're too curious. Maybe you should take it slow. Mysterious, that's the part you always show, 'cause you're too curious. Maybe you should take it slow. Super stimulating editing. I'm just roughing out the edges of what I want to show.
Dreaming in the dark, we are nothing more than dust. You search but you stay lost. We're reaching for the stars, we're making
Click here, hold shift, draw a line.
and I wonder where you are. Mysterious, that's the part you always show, 'cause you're too curious. Maybe you should take it slow.
So each brush, in order to save RAM and memory, has a certain spacing. So if I was to draw like this, you see the same pattern. But as I decrease the spacing between, it becomes more of a smooth edge. It just takes a lot more computer computation smooth rounded strokes with less wobbles like that. To be honest though, the subtlety of it when you zoom back, it doesn't show up so much in the background. Doing yellow gold or more contrasty jewelry is so much easier. Silver with white highlights is a pain. White t-shirts with the bright highlighted subject matter is a pain. So this is the cutout way. I'm gonna do it not the cutout way. In a moment, it's probably faster. I just feel like, for whatever reason, I make less mistakes if I take the slow, long way of doing this. Alright, and here it's gonna. What's going on here? Is that what I've been doing this whole time? Mother effer. Mistakes. My bad. Back to the mask. Instead of actually working on the mask, I was painting white behind it, which made it seem like I was giving it detail, but I wasn't. That entire thing I did was a waste of time. The mistakes we make, always keep your eye on your layers, because you never know what you're working on. I'm going to leave that mask for now. Copy layer, hide this layer, delete mask. The non-cookie cutter cutout way, you can take this highlights tool, put it at 100%. Don't have protect tones, because then it won't wipe that paper for what areas is white as it should be. And you can start off by erasing everything surrounding it. Strokes, careful not to get too close. As you get close, you're not going to go as harshly because it burns into the subject, but if you feather it like this, lots of little strokes, then it's not so bad. Feather, feather, feather. Using the dodge tool. If you don't know what the dodge tool is, it's labeled after an old black and white printing method. When you're using chemical printing, you would have a light shining down on a piece of paper. There was a piece of negative. I don't want to explain negative, but light was shining down through the negative, projecting onto the paper over like 10, 30 seconds, depending on how you'd set it up, how bright the bulb was, or how big the hole was, the aperture through which the negative was being projected. Basically, when you're black and white printing, it's like an overhead projector in school, or even a digital projector that's in your theater. Light is being shone behind it. It shines through a negative or positive, so something that stops. It has a picture that's transparent, and it stops light and lets light through, and then the projection shows up on the wall. In this case, you're shining down on a tabletop where you're printing through the negative, and it's projecting onto a piece of paper. And that paper has silver that's sensitive to light, and the more light that hits certain areas records darker, and less light that hits records lighter. So we are burning into a piece of silver paper a black and white print. Same concept with color printing as well, but whatever. While you were printing, you had the ability to stick in something like a spoon or like a blacked out magnifying glass, something with a long stick that was mostly invisible, like a wire, and a piece of paper or something at the end that was like a disc. And you could wiggle that around and it would basically lighten an area. And that's what the dodge tool would do. It would make less light burn into the paper. The burn tool would be like a giant piece of paper with a small hole cut in it, and what you let through the hole would burn darker. That's where those labels come from. Anyway, so I'm just feathering with the dodge tool. Notice I'm stopping around here and here because I'm not going to use the dodge tool. It leaves too harsh an edge for this. I'm going to use the white paintbrush. You can do a lot more refinement for that. I'm also going to switch to a smaller brush and do some more control stuff in a moment. Normal layer brush, 100% opacity, maximum softness. I'm going to start off with a larger brush, probably around 1000. See how this brush, unlike the Dodge tool, leaves a nice soft, almost invisible edge. Now, as I get closer, I'm going to go to my history. I'm going to click this mark here. If you've never used the history brush, this will be important. Usually the history brush is set to the default when you open. So anything I do here with the history brush, and if I want to paint that, okay, it's hard to demonstrate this, but if I had not had separate layers and I just left the image the way that I had loaded it, I could have painted here and it would show all that gray stuff that I wiped away, because that was the state when the image opened. I am going to click here because I want to basically use a white paintbrush, and I'll use the extreme version. Paint it white with the history brush. It will paint back whatever the image looked like at that point in time. So I'm going to put 100% opacity, and I can now control what I want to bring back from that particular state in my history. And when this moves up, it'll stop here, and it will be locked in whenever I want to go back to that state. And the reason I want to do this, I'm going to go with a 30% opacity. Paint this edge very roughly. I'm not going to care that I make it light. It's a little bit destructive, it seems at first, when destroying the pixels and making them lighter here, but I know that I can bring them back to the history brush. So I'm going to bring back my 100 opacity brush, history brush, and bring back this area that looks like I destroyed. A lot of people do what's called non-destructive editing, where they use layers, they won't change anything without making extra masks or layers, etc. One check marks of the history brush, and your destructive editing is gone. Something else I can do, if I didn't like how much I had removed of the shadow underneath, I can use a broader brush, change the opacity, and gradually drawing it back like this. And there I have a much more natural shadow blending into a completely bleached out foreground. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'll do it a bit slower. I have a white brush at 30%, 1 stroke, 2 strokes, 3 strokes. I still see a little bit of an edge there. Maybe you don't. On my monitor, I can definitely see it. Cut across here, and now I should have a nice clean shadow without too much detail. And I'm going to use that history brush again. It's at now it's at 100%. Got the hardness of the brush back. I guess I wasn't very clear at the beginning. I'm doing very basic jewelry photography. Lots of quantity at speed for shooting and speed for editing for a low price. A lot of e-commerce websites have jewelry up for a season. They test the sales. If the sales don't work, they discontinue the pieces and then introduce something new later. A lot of jewelry makers are investing scads of money in materials and manufacturing. Silver and gold can be expensive depending on where and how you buy it. And by the time they've invested everything into marketing and storefronts or going to trade shows, they just don't have a lot of money kicking around unless they're a really big retailer. So their budgets just aren't high. And the realism is that they're going to cheap out on the photography. They're going to try to get some student to try doing it. They're going to try to get a friend to do it with a smartphone. They're going to suffer and be frustrated. At some point, they're going to settle down and say they want a professional, but they don't have the budget for it. So I offer people this weird compromise where I will photograph their jewelry fairly cheap and edit it fairly quick just as long as they know I'm delivering a fast food quality for a fast food price. And the bulk of that work is the sheer numbers of products that I can get from that usually makes it worth my while. And it's not stressing me out, it's not requiring all of my skill. Again, it's like asking a 5-star chef to make some quick hamburgers. And, you know, me, I do have some special ingredients that make my hamburgers taste better. But otherwise, it's just me, you know, having an off day, doing a little bit of lazy editing and shooting on some simple stuff, not too challenging. We all need that kind of stuff. Every day can't be a 5-star day, so otherwise you get overwhelmed. Too much. Looks like I have brought this gray shadow back. Alright, so I cleaned up the white background. I want to verify that I haven't left anything too ugly looking, so I bring up my levels right from the monitor, and I just crank it down. I just want to see how bad my shadows are. There's some blotchy things up there I can get rid of. The shadows can be cleaned up a little more. Just do that about 100%. Those are gone. 50%, a little bit bigger. Yeah, it's fine. You won't see those great spots. Save the progress I'm at now. Always save when you feel you've hit a good spot, because if you lose 10-15 minutes worth of work because something crashes, it's gonna suck. Now my goal here is to remove the yellows. I have a couple quick ways of doing it. If I'm lazy and doing this for a client, I might just crank up the blues a bit. It does change the color tone a little bit too much for me though. On my layers, I like to use selective color. I go down to the neutrals. I strip out the yellow a little bit, 2 or 3. I think in the greens, I can crank it towards the magenta by 2 or 3, because it was looking a bit yellow, and sometimes green is a major contributor to yellow. Advanced color theory, red, green, blue, we're all familiar with. We usually talk about things if they're red, reddish, greenish, or yellowish, or sorry, bluish. But the opposite of those colors are I forget the specific term. Cyan, magenta, yellow are the blends. So yellow is a, why am I blanking on this? Blue-green mix. No. I'm having one of those days. RGB, CMYK. There we go. Bring this over here. There we go. Color wheel stuff. Blue. Oh, wait. Yes, here we go. Blue mixed with green does equal yellow. No, purple. Wait. Yeah, blue, red, green. This is embarrassing. Red and green equal yellow. Blue and green equal cyan. Blue and red equal magenta. That's what I'm trying to say. So, when you take the yellows away, you get a bluish tone. That is because, going back here, the opposite of yellow is blue. Right, yeah. Okay, this wheel isn't visually showing it the way it should. I'm using the wrong wheel. There we go! The opposite of yellow should be purple? The fuck? Opposite of yellow is a blue. Yes, I was right. There we go. Opposite purple, green, instead of magenta is purple. The more yellow you mix into green, the more purple is the opposite. Green is red, the opposite of red is cyan. Okay, so when you pull out yellows, you're going to get more blue. When you add more yellows, you're going to get more yellow. All right, but what I was trying to say in green, if you go to the magentas, which are here, and you take it out, you get more green. When you add it in, you get less green. So add a bit of magenta, warms it up a tiny bit, take away the greeniness. Anyway, see if the subtleties make sense. Before, after. Before, no, you're not going to see that. I see it, you're not going to see it. Now I go 5, there you go, a little more green. Before, after, there you go. So it goes from a yellowy color to a bit more of a warmer silver color. Very, very subtle. Alright, you can see the shadows on the far left a little bit better when I zoom out. Anyway, I made this extreme for you guys. I'm going to take it down to my subtle adjustment of 3 and 3. Plus 3 magenta, minus 3 yellow. And then if I want, I'll add a curves layer and do the thing I did earlier before I went on this whole tangent. Add a bit of blue. I was saying fast food, but I am taking a lot of time to kind of go through this with you guys just because I feel like being a bit educational. This wasn't supposed to be a tutorial, but I'm getting used to talking. Not all tones and shades are affected equally. The predominant color tones that I'm trying to affect is this lighter shade of middle tone. This darker stuff I do not like. So I'm going to select the dominant silver tone that I like with my paintbrush. I'm going to do color. And I could paint over this area here, which turned out too magenta for me. And it will be replaced with the right color tone. A little saturated looking, but it's better than the magenta color that was just there. And I feel better with that. Now, in all these little divots, there is a collection of grease that has gotten some warm elements to it. So they're a little too brown for me. One more. A coffee maker in the background, but no, sorry about that. So I'm just going to desaturate all these little spots, just so they don't stand out so much with the color tone alone. And then I'm going to get rid of a lot of this dirt, crud, and black stuff. These, I was told by my client that these imperfections in the jewelry are intended. They are casts of small rocks that she's found, and she's drilled holes in them and done various things. It's her shtick is stones found by the water that are very unique and beautiful. She loves it very much. So I'm going to back normal. I'm now going to implement a few things. By using the clone tool, you can copy 100%. You can copy data from one location to another minimally. Some people always seem to be overwhelmed by this, other people get it right away. Information can go here. I can take this information and put it in a different location. As long as I target, right now I'm holding Alt, Mac, Windows Alt Mac option. I have a little crosshair. I can choose my target. I say, okay, that's my target. Now, you can see under the clone brush, it's taking that piece and showing me where I can move it. I'm going to move it here, not for any reason other than to show how the target works. As I'm drawing and tracing in that circle, you'll see down where I got the target from, there's a little plus symbol that's matching it and showing me that I can rebuild everything from scratch. The reason I'm showing this is I'm going to use this in a different way. I'm going to set it to lighten only. So if I grab this section here and said, paint it here, but only if it's lighter, it's not going to paint anything because there's nothing lighter than white. But if I said, paint this on top of this black area that is lighter, and all it's going to paint is the lighter detail while obscuring the darker stuff. So that was, again, a rough sample. What I intend to do is take this area here and mirror it right there, piece by piece, to cover over that black area. Brush sizes. And I'm not going to be too reckless with it. I'm going to try to use a smaller brush size as much as possible, because the more you spread a brush, the more destructive it is, and you start getting fuzzies or little details like this guy here. You want to maximize your control in the finely without having too much bleed and spillover. I switched the brush not from lighten but back to normal just so I can get rid of these lighter areas that are not being replaced. Let's go back up. Yeah, the black thing is gone. Nice and good. So my client does want these to look a little flawed, as I was saying. And before I start removing all the specks, I want to remove the big things that I'm guaranteed to get rid of, which is these black areas. And then I can see how far is too far to remove flaws. Because I want to make this jewelry look natural. I'm just cleaning it up and getting rid of reflections. I don't want to, in the end, have it look like it was painted by a paintbrush and be blurry. Because you can lose a lot of context sharpness, reality, and details by just using broad stroke brushes. So you see this little white box here? That is basically telling me that this little thing here is not dark enough. So weird. Anyway, I'll just fix that in a minute. Alright, I've gotten rid of the black. I mean, I'm showing you lighten. Now I can show you darken. So this is like a medium gray. And these little highlights, I can just draw over those now too. It's a little less destructive than the dark one after. Look at that. You can see there's a lot of texture in here now. I can grab this dark spot, copy it there, but I can't grab this light spot and copy it there because it's only going to copy the dark depth. Back to normal, get rid of a few flecks. The good idea with using light is I can take this area here, copy here, and it just gets rid of the flex and leaves the rest of it if I want. In this case down here where these little shadows are, definitely don't like this line that's forming, so I'll go back to normal in a minute and fix that, but for now I'm going to stick to getting rid of the dark shadows. Someday in the future I might feel comfortable enough to be comedic with you guys. And that's a plan. I can't make jokes with myself very easily, but in the right situation with friends, you know what, I sort of can't do too much without knowing how the overall image looks, so I'm going to zoom out for a second. Alright, let's do 70%. That should be sufficient on this one. Start. Light. Brush, target here. So I'm going to zoom out. Before, after, or I should go back to the history state, before, after. These zoomed out like this look a lot less flawed than they did earlier. When we zoom in, of course, we see all that speck and texture. Like I said, my client was interested in keeping a lot of this the natural stone texture that came with it. So I'm not going to mess with it too much more. I might just look at a few areas that look smudgy or blotchy and try to clean them up. I do like to try to get rid of these lines that delineate a shadow. So what you're seeing in this stone is actually, I shot in a 3 foot by 3 foot white box made of foam core. and I had a bright white piece of paper underneath. And at the front of the box, there was an open space where my camera was. I was holding some papers up and some reflectors, but for the most part, it's kind of a dark zone in front. And you see the transition, this wiggly line is actually the edge of the white paper, and everything else is the dark zone at the front. You see here, this line here is actually where the bottom of the box meets the wall of the box. And because the light is directly above, more of the light is hitting directly onto the paper and is brighter. If I was to angle the wall like 10 degrees leaning back, it probably would have caught more light, but because it wasn't. This is a wall on the left. This is, a wall on the right from where we're facing, stage right. And this is a floor, and then this is the dark zone facing the camera. I'm just going to try to get rid of these edges so that it's not so obvious that the set is doing this. So I'm going to go back to lighten, but not with clone. I'll do clone. I'm going to use the clone first. Clone's far better. And 50% opacity, not 70%. You see that back and forth? I'm actually hitting Control Z on Windows, but Command Z on Mac. It's back and forth on this history thing. It will go back and forth like this if I use the keystroke. I'm gonna go lower opacity. I think it's happening too much. Start over again. Slightly bigger brush. We are at 23 opacity, not 70. Just grabbing detail from below and pushing it up in a nice soft way. And go up along here using neighboring detail so that the tones transition well. If I was to grab this much lighter tone and try to copy it here, it wouldn't blend as well. Remember what I said earlier about destructive things? When I am doing these cloning things, I am destroying the pixels by replacing them with other pixels. Well, if I ever feel like I've gone too far, as long as I've got this stable lock, I always brush it back. 100%, right back to where we started. I'm going to go 40%. 30%. Alright, let's see. Back to the locked layer, really enhanced edges. Here it's a little bit softer and reflective. Zooming out. I'll stop there, I like that one. No I don't. Bit of a trigger. I'm going to grab this tone here. Not lighten, but lighten color maybe? No. What do I want to do here? Screen? No, not screen. Maybe luminosity. Yeah, we'll do a low pass luminosity. Let's go light. How does that really feel? Now it's starting to look, I was mentioning earlier, that painting feel, where it feels like someone put a paintbrush on it. You feel that fuzziness. So, the mystery brush. No, I think this dark edge has purpose. Not as much as I'd like it to. Gives it more shape and depth. So I'm going to leave a little bit of a little pastel. Alright. How do you feel about this? Contrast, a bit of a shine. I'm gonna save this before I go any further. Filter Nick color correction. It's something that I just want to do. Alright, in Nick colors thing, I'm going to bleach bypass and drop the contrast down, drop the local contrast down, and go before, after. You see a lot of that yellow tone comes out, there's a lot of sparkle in there. Add some local contrast back. Put the saturation. Before, after, before, after. Feels like a nice silver thing. Drop the brightness a bit. Subjectively, I think it feels shinier, more rounded in a dense reality. Let's see what these tones are saying. Let's just check. Alright, going back. I should explain Nick colored. This was acquired by Google, and then we stopped developing it, and then we either bought it from them or licensed it from them. It's a nice little app that I like using. I'm not going to go into too much, because all I really want to use is that one function, bleach bypass, so that's me to kind of enhance sparkle. That lighting tool, dog tool, and change it to light in the mid-tone. Alright, well, the goal here is to show you in history where we started roughly, where we ended up, taking our time. That should be yes, this is can you tell me when you want to be in time? Saving pose. On to the next one. Now, this will be the speed run. This is which method do I want to use? Okay, so I haven't shown you this method. I started with it, but then I abandoned it. I have an action setup, which selects the coloring, inverts the selection, expands the selection, feathers the selection, makes it into a mask and a layer at the same time. I move the layer, I fill the bottom layer with white, then select the layer I want to work on, and then I select the mask on that layer. That's what I basically did, so that when I hit play, this now came from a flat image to basically, like I said, created a bottom layer, filled it with white, created another layer, and then I'm ready to work on this mask. I'm going to invert the background just so you can see what's going on here. There's a bit of yeah, that's what I want. Okay. I don't want any white detail in the background. So I'm going to go back to this. Use this paintbrush, start brushing back the detail. That's what I'm looking for. Start. Flat. Oh, if I use protect tones here, that should protect the tones on the right, or the, yeah, better than on this side than it is over here. I've got the general shape. It's acceptable level, I think. More messages. Ooh, good messages. Sorry, but the speedrun has been abandoned for messages. Alright, back to the editing. Sorry about that. Apologizing to the non-existent audience. Woo, here we go. So Canadian of me, huh? Apologizing to nobody. Alright. Notice that the way that I'm doing this with the big strokes, the loose cloning brush, it's becoming very monotone and smooth and less detail. It's a consequence of just being reckless and careless with it. I'm going to add some digital noise in there later. and come back and remove some of this destruction. I just want to map out what I want to do. Alright. Now, a history bus, like I said in the last image, will default to how it opened. Detail back to the wrist. Not too much though. Select coloring very specifically that little dot there. Yeah. Filter noise. Add noise. See all that noise I'm adding in? Very subtle, but it's there. All you need is subtlety. Before, after, more. Gray on gray. Good luck seeing this. Before, after. Before, after. Before, after. Just enough to not look like one solid thing. Hopefully it'll translate to the internet video compression. Probably not. Normal. Well, I'm going to lock. Here's a trick I learned. Lock in the most recent thing that you've done. Go back to the original. Once you start copying and pasting or doing anything to the original, you lose all of your history except the one that I saved before I came back. I am selecting the entire thing. I'm going to copy it with a Command-C or Control-C. Go back to this history state, which is all the editing I had done. And if I hit Command-V, I now have the original on a separate layer. That way, my history doesn't control... that way I'm not forced to only access limited parts of the original through the clone or the history brush. I can now bring the history forward. So, the reason I want to do that... Why is the reason I want to do that? I start doing it, I forget why. Maybe I just want to show it to you. Oh, right. Because I'm going to crop this. And once I crop the photo, I'll show you here. This is exactly that. Rotation, crop. That feels a little better to me. When I go to use the history brush, if the history brush is set to the original, it won't work because the pixels have changed location with the crop of the location. So if I tried painting this donut-shaped thing back, it's not going to be the same place. So it rejects my ability to align historical content with current content. But because I brought it forward and pasted it on a separate layer, when I did the rotation and crop, it did it to the entire image, I now have access to all this again. So I'm just going to leave this hidden until I'm done. I'm pretty much done. I just want to make sure I rotated, cropped, and didn't lose my history. I'm also going to save this. One of the main reasons I save these images is I've had problems with this Nick Color collection software before, Color Effects Pro 4, when it just crashes because I'm not using sRGB profile necessarily. Profiles are another day, another subject. But I'm going to run Color Effects and it shouldn't crash because I've been having good luck with it lately, but if it did, I wouldn't want to lose all that progress. Alright, so Bleach Bypass was the last filter I used. It saved the same settings that I had last time. Earlier, I had shown you a selective color removal and a way of desaturating the yellows through that. I'm going to add a filter to this color color effects thing and try to find a tool that's appropriate for getting rid of that yellow. Contrast color select the yellows. So you see how I select on the slider the color yellow, I can affect just that color tone in different ways. I'm not necessarily do too much of it. It looks like I've seen something like this before. It's a lot more reflective. Add in the filter. Filter that I want to do. Choose white neutralizer. I'm going to choose this dark shadow here. Do it twice just to make sure I get the right tone. 3 times. There we go. I'm not going to adjust the whole image, but I've defined the color tone that I want to bleach out, and it's that orangey yellowy color. And I just don't want it to be this dark and saturated. I want it to be around here. So, before, after. Ooh. What I'm observing though is when I do this neutralized whites, it's actually adding tone to the surrounding white area. So I am not going to use that tool. Alright, refilter. Now you know what. So, contrast color range to add a little sparkle to that inner shadow, and bleach bypass to add some density and desaturate a little bit. But let's try this now. Selective color. That's the way every day goes. Looking back, I know we started falling. We were falling in love, yeah. I'm gonna go to the yellows right, and I can black. When you left me chasing you. There. Flatten the image. I'm done with this. I'm gonna grab the paintbrush, change it to color. This is the rough way of doing it. Soft brush. Low opacity. Do several small strokes to saturate those colors. Or select color range. I can pick control E. So now I'm just playing with saturation before after. So 4 or 5 subtle different ways of doing it, and added them all stacked up together. Let's go before, after. I feel more happy at having that dark brownie color inside reflection. Yeah, I can take this further later if the client wants me to, but for now this is where I'm gonna leave this. All right, yellow gold. That'll go quick. First thing I want to do, the crop is a little off in terms of height. Roughly here. There, flatten image. I'm going to immediately lock in the history state that I want based on the crop. In fact, you know what? I'm going to crop there. Flatten image, lock in new history state. There, I'm okay with where it is. Going to do a couple things here. This will be much easier for me being yellow gold than silver. to be able to do this method. So I ran that thing where it cut out the whites. It left a lot more detail because the dense yellows did not get erased as the image earlier did. And I use my masking tool on the layer. I'm on this mask, and I use white to bring back detail, and then black to erase detail. So was it what they say, like white reveals, black conceals? Is the phrase they used to try to remember that. Little opacity for the shadow. Extend it out past the area a little bit. 100%, and we are moments away from finishing this image compared to doing silver. Little opacity. 2 bits. Right. Yes, I do see that here. I'll do that in a minute. In theory, if I layer flatten and Control M for levels, starting it down like this, we can see that there's some density. That density that looks relatively invisible to us when we're looking at the screen, when it goes on a website, and sometimes those websites compress the tones in the JPEGs to make them smaller, they reassign subtleties of tone either to be darker or lighter, because they're just trying to basically take millions of colors and reduce them to hundreds of thousands. And in that equation of figuring out what color should be what, sometimes these shadows that seem invisible to us now later come in as like blotchy halos and just bad editing. So it's better to have it be a pure white, because the compression programs never change white from anything other than white. And I made a mistake. I'll show you why we see all this weird blue stuff that we didn't see earlier. Remember when I talked about protect tones? Once I checked that, it tried to preserve some level of that tone and reassign it. I'm going to do one stroke across with a dodge brush without protect tones. I'm going to darken it down, and you're going to see where I just wiped away all that detail. So that was my mistake, to use the wrong checkbox on that tool. Like shards of glass. Yeah. Almost. Cracks your bones when you slip away. Gotta keep on going, keep on going somehow. Yeah, fine. Alright, so remember I have that history brush. I checked that earlier. I could do all that tone back if I wanted to. Nick collection, we're going to mess with the yellow gold a little bit, make it look right. Bleach bypass before, after. So, I'm going to add a bit of brightness on the left one. Before, after, I'm a little happy with that. Saturation. Before, after. Add color, or add filter, contrast color range. Drop the contrast all the way down here. Select the gold. Drop this all the way down. That adds a little more sparkle before, after. And let's try adding pro contrast filter. Time to realize that there's no turning round. This is the fight that you've been waiting for. Alright, now that I've added this dynamic contrast, I'm going to go back to bleach bypass. Add some regular contrast. To me, it looks like a more reflective metal. The diamonds look like they got a bit more going on in them. And this is where we go into the enhancement element after I have this whole overall look where I want. It always seems to come out a little bit different than the previous. It's a little too saturated on the left here. So I'm going to zoom in. Now remember in particular, the posts and elements of these sets of earrings were not really well cleaned. A lot of finger grease. People have put these in their ears, and I'm not going to use the word disgusting, but it's not clean. I like this gold tone right here on the sample. I'm going to choose lighten color, so I could stroke across here and it will lighten things to a certain degree. Or at least change the color tone. No, let's just go color. I just want to get rid of this green top edge to a certain degree. Before, that's good. And then maybe I can tone down some of this orangey stuff here. That's not too saturated. Do not want saturated shadows. When you're dealing with yellow gold, unfortunately your shadows will get saturated by reflection. So I tend to take the black and white color brush and saturate that shadow. And a separation. Separation between white paper and gold, making it an edge. There we go. Do that back here too. Usually don't do this too much in the fast food kind of photography editing, but you know, a bit of pride, a tiny bit of pride showing through in this meat grinder of a tutorial. All right. Let's get rid of this hair. It's been bugging me all this time. Just gonna try to be patient. All right. Choose light 50%. Don't want to get rid of all the texture. Most of this is just filth. It's not one of the natural stones that you can create. Normal. Alright, which of these look the best? Probably the guy on the far right. It's an unfortunate cheat, but almost every jewelry photography person, when they pen, it's so much difficulty with diamonds that they copy what they pen. This diamond's going to be my king diamond. This is more easy to do with tiny micro kind of diamonds that are so small. There's no difference between relatively bigger cut diamonds. That's when you start making different grades and obvious flaws that make things a little different. You don't want to take that stuff. Each gem has its own signature look. In this case, I can't clone because of the low depth of field, but I can do things with the tones. I can brighten the areas and make it feel like my light is bring up some of those shadows. That's better. I guess I'll give some color. Whoa, way too. How do I feel about this? Dodge brush. Not gonna affect them. I'm okay with this. for what it was. Let's go to the beginning. 9, 7.
I'm gonna stop the live stream for a bit, get myself some lunch.
Let's see what